The rain had eased into a mist, the kind that clung to the skin and blurred the edges of the runway lights. Jordan stood at the cockpit door, watching the last of the passengers step onto the wet tarmac toward the terminal. That's when he saw him. A man in a dark overcoat, no umbrella, standing motionless at the far end of the jet bridge. The coat hung heavy with rain, yet the man didn't move to shield himself. He wasn't looking at the plane in general. He was looking directly at Jordan. For a moment, Jordan thought it might be one of the ground crew, but there was no fluorescent vest, no ID badge, no headset, just a pair of dark eyes that didn't blink. Karen brushed past him, muttering something about coffee before the turnaround flight, but Jordan barely heard her. The man in the coat turned away and melted into the small crowd funneling toward baggage claim. Jordan's hand tightened on the cockpit frame. He'd seen that stare before. Years ago, in an airport lounge, 2 days before Flight 307, the flight that still haunted his dreams. He shook himself out of it. There was still work to do. After signing off the flight logs, he met the paramedics who had taken the passenger off board. A middle-aged man, heart attack. They got him stable in under 5 minutes after touchdown. "You got him here just in time, Captain," one of the paramedics said. "Another 10 minutes and—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Jordan nodded, though his mind was already elsewhere. By the time the crew made their way into the terminal, the man in the coat was gone. They had a 2-hour layover before their next flight. Most of the crew headed for the food court. Jordan wandered toward the far end of the terminal, passing glass walls streaked with rain. He told himself he was just stretching his legs. He told himself he wasn't looking for that face. But when he reached gate C-27, he saw him again. Same coat, same stillness. Standing in a shadowed corner near an out-of-service vending machine. Jordan stopped. This time, the man didn't look away. He gave the smallest nod, as if acknowledging some unspoken agreement, then turned and walked toward a restricted access door. Jordan felt a jolt in his chest. Not fear, exactly, but something colder. He stepped forward, but before he could follow, a TSA officer blocked the hallway. "Sir, you can't go back there." Jordan glanced at the badge on the TSA officer's uniform. No name, just the word security stitched in block letters. He backed off. "Yeah, sorry, wrong turn." When he turned around, the man in the coat had vanished again. Back at the crew lounge, Karen was hunched over a styrofoam cup of coffee. She looked up as Jordan entered. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," Jordan said. Karen hesitated. "Listen, you were incredible up there today. I mean it. But I need to ask, that turbulence, the storm, was that really the safest call? Or was it—" She trailed off. "Or was it what?" She took a sip, eyes flicking toward the window. "Or was it you chasing something? Like you were running towards something instead of away from it?" Jordan's jaw tightened. "Every decision I made today was about getting that passenger on the ground alive." "I'm not saying it wasn't," Karen said quickly. "But you had this look when we hit the shear, like you'd been there before." He thought about denying it. Instead, he just said, "I have." Before Karen could press him, the boarding call came over the PA. The next leg was supposed to be uneventful. A short hop to Denver, clear skies predicted. But 20 minutes into the climb, the first officer, Mason, handed Jordan a folded piece of paper. "It was taped to the back of my seat when I got in," Mason said. Jordan unfolded it. The handwriting was blocky, deliberate. Flight 307 wasn't an accident. Jordan's throat went dry. He flipped the note over. On the back was a single initial, R. The rest of the flight went by in a blur. His hands moved through the motions. Altitude adjustments, radio calls, checklists. but his mind was back in that smoking wreckage in the Colorado mountains, the night they told him nothing could have been done. Now someone was saying otherwise. When they landed in Denver, Jordan made an excuse to the crew about catching up on paperwork. Instead, he slipped into an empty maintenance corridor and pulled out his phone. He still had one contact from those days, a retired investigator named Lyle, who had quietly hinted that the official report wasn't the whole story. "Jordan?" Lyle's voice was gravelly, suspicious. "Haven't heard from you in years." "Got a note," Jordan said. "Says Flight 307 wasn't an accident. Any reason someone would say that now?" There was a pause. Then, "You need to get off the clock before we talk about this." "Lyle, not here. Not on a phone you don't control. You've got people watching you now, son." The line went dead. Back at the hotel that night, Jordan stood at the window, watching the Denver lights shimmer through a thin fog. His mind was a storm of questions. Who was the man in the coat? Why now? And what did the letter R mean? He heard footsteps outside his door, slow, deliberate. Then a faint knock. Jordan approached cautiously. "Who is it?" No answer. He looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. But when he opened the door, there was another folded note on the floor. This one was shorter. "They know you're asking questions. Check your bag before you fly." Jordan's eyes darted to the duffel by the bed. His pulse hammered in his ears as he unzipped it. Inside, nestled between his neatly folded uniforms, was a small black device with a blinking red light. The news spread faster than the storm they'd flown through. By the time Jordan stepped off the aircraft, word of the landing had already reached the regional operations office. The tower controller clapped him on the shoulder. "Hell of a call, Captain. Most would have turned back." Jordan only nodded. Sometimes the longer road isn't the safer one. Outside, rain still pelted the tarmac, thunder rumbling somewhere far off. A black SUV waited to drive him to the overnight hotel. But before he could step inside, a man in a dark suit emerged from the terminal, holding an ID wallet just high enough to see. "Federal Aviation Administration." "Captain Jordan Blake?" the man asked. "That's me," Jordan said, frowning. "Problem." The agent glanced at the storm clouds. "Let's just say your landing caught the attention of a lot of people. Some are impressed. Some, not so much." Jordan didn't like the implication. "We had a passenger in critical condition. I chose the safest option for him." The agent's eyes narrowed. "And you flew straight into Category 2 wind shear warnings. That's not a choice everyone agrees with." He stepped closer, voice low. "This isn't just about today. There's a file on you, Captain. I've been asked to deliver a message. Expect a formal inquiry." Jordan didn't flinch. "Then I'll be ready for it." At the crew hotel, Karen knocked on his door before he'd even unpacked. Her usual sarcasm was gone, replaced by something more urgent. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, stepping inside without waiting. "I just got a message from a friend who works dispatch. Someone's pulling all your flight logs from the last year, not just today's. All of them." Jordan leaned against the desk. "That's not standard." "No," she said. "It's not." The inquiry began the next week. Jordan walked into a conference room where 3 FAA officials sat, expressions unreadable. They reviewed his decision-making step by step, pausing to ask about fuel reserves, storm avoidance radar, and crew communications. One of them, a graying man with a clipped tone, kept circling back to the same question. "Why didn't you turn back?" Jordan answered the same way every time, because turning back would have cost the passenger his life. After hours of questioning, they dismissed him. "You'll be contacted when a decision is made," the lead investigator said. That night, Jordan found Karen sitting alone in the crew lounge. She had 2 coffees in front of her and a stack of printed emails. "You were right," she said. This isn't just about today's flight. Someone's pushing hard to make you look reckless. Any idea who? She hesitated. I've heard rumors. You turned down a transfer last year, right? One that would have put you in management? Jordan nodded slowly. Yeah. They wanted me behind a desk. I told them I belong in the cockpit. Karen slid one of the emails across the table. I think someone took that personally. The message was from a senior operations director, someone Jordan knew by name, implying that certain pilots had developed a reputation for risk-taking and cowboy decision-making. The subtext wasn't hard to read. Weeks passed. Jordan kept flying, but every trip felt like someone was watching. FAA inspectors showed up at gates. Random audits delayed boarding. Passengers were never told why. And then came the letter. Captain Blake, after review of your recent actions and flight history, the board has determined that your judgment, while resulting in a positive outcome in this instance, displayed a pattern of unnecessary operational risk. Effective immediately, your license is suspended pending further evaluation. He read it twice, then set it down. His hands weren't shaking, but his chest felt heavy. Karen was in the jump seat on his last flight before the suspension took effect. As they climbed out, she glanced at him. You gonna fight this? Jordan stared at the horizon. Not gonna. Already am. The hearing was closed door. Jordan presented radar data, weather reports, and medical logs proving that the decision to push forward had been both calculated and necessary. The doctor from the flight testified, describing how the passenger's survival window had been measured in minutes. Still, the opposition pressed hard. You could have turned back, one official said. Jordan met their gaze. And in doing so, I would have buried a man. Pilots don't just fly planes. We make the calls no one else can make. And if that's not what you want in your cockpits, then you're not looking for pilots. You're looking for autopilots. The room went silent. Days later, he got the call. License reinstated, record cleared, and a quiet warning from a sympathetic contact. You made enemies, Jordan. You also made allies. Choose carefully. On his first flight back, Karen greeted him at the gate with a smirk. Not her old mocking one, but something warmer. Heard the passengers are in for smooth skies today. Jordan chuckled. That's the plan. Halfway through boarding, a man in 2A caught Jordan's eye. Business suit. FAA pin on the lapel. No carry-on, no smile. He just watched Jordan, expression unreadable. Karen leaned over. Friend of yours? Jordan's jaw tightened. Not sure yet. The seatbelt sign chimed. Engines roared. And as the wheels left the ground, Jordan knew the turbulence he'd just lifted into wasn't just in the clouds. In the cockpit, Jordan's first officer slid a folded note across the console. Jordan opened it. 4 words, written in block letters. This isn't over.